sometimes people were really in bad situations.
We're business people, and they were remain steadfast.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
How I ran into Aurora and how, Steadfast became a thing. I'm from Orlando, born and raised in the Orlando area. And as we've discussed on some of the other podcasts here, I had quite a run of it for a number of years out there in the in them streets and doing a bunch of nonsense and getting caught up in a bunch of stuff. And the only thing that I had ever done in the middle of all of that, in the middle of all of my crazy, street life and club life and all that nonsense, was I pierced. I had done that in the early 90s when I was working in downtown Orlando at a shop called Milky Way. This dude, Kenny Balsita, it was his shop, and he kind of taught me how to pierce. I actually brought him to Orlando to do piercing parties, because back before we were all able to take like this platform now where we say, hey, everything has to be super professional and everything has to be on the up and up. It wasn't. We did a lot of shit in hotels, tattoo parlors down there. People did drugs openly.
I actually met Joe. Joe Amato was who I was dating at the time.
I called him out.
So I actually met him in our dorm room getting my lip pierced.
Yeah. That's the way it worked.
And we used to have parties all the time. Like, that's the thing.
Don't do what we did. Just listen to what we say now. Like, all of this stuff.
That was really dumb. Don't do that.
Oh, yeah. It was terrible ideas. Like tattoos, piercings, all of that stuff was done. But, the industry was different, too. Like, shops were a lot more rough and a lot more open about, everything. Like I've said in this before, like I got my back tattooed by a dude that was smoking cigarettes the whole time and drinking beer. Like, it's just kind of the way it is. And we would not want that to ever be a thing again. And now that better and we have better options, you always want to take those.
And people were really willing to rent places out to tattoo.
Right. Yeah. It was hard as hell to get a lease back then. You had to have some place off in the cut. So neither here nor there. We met so I did that. And then when I got clean and everything, and I moved to a different area and started businesses there, I started a piercing shop, right? Because that was what I had done. So I just had a really good podcast with Damon Conklin. If you want to hear more about this and being sober and getting into the business, we had a really cool one. I think you're going to like that one a lot, Aurora. And
I was hearing you two go ahead.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy. That one went almost 2 hours. So I had to call it because I think we would have just kept going. So I decided to go down that path. So I opened a piercing shop and I had it for about a year. And then everybody in the neighborhood was just all the tattooers were buddies of mine, and they just wanted to work for me because they thought I had a good business sense. So they would kind of openly talk to me about it, that if I ever opened a full tattoo parlor, they would want to come work for me. So I did that about a year later. I left the building I was in and expanded to a full shop, 3,600 square foot, Fat Cats Artistry. It's still in Ocala. If you find yourself in Ocala, Florida, hit up Fat Cats with a K Artistry. And it is fatcatsartistry.com. My buddy Brian Purdy still owns it. He was my 9-year manager when I sold it to him. I had it exactly 10 years, and it's still there. It's still rocking. So I opened up that shop, and then, like she said, we met at events because I partnered off with Hillary Wilson in Intrepid Body Jewelry out of Bali, right? She's the super cool lady that has this awesome facility in Bali where they carve all kinds of cool organic stuff, large gauge jewelry, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of met up that way. And at the time, during the time that I had Fat Cats, I always looked to do other things. I had the body jewelry business. I started an oil product, which was for keloiding and for healing piercings and things like that. And that's how I originally worked with you. Was I needed a write-up on it. I thought this business idea up with a buddy, and I was like, hey, I need somebody to put this together, and you needed to do this for school. You needed it for your final project. You needed to do a full business plan for somebody. Everything from the business cards, the flyers, the write-ups, the site, everything.
Full business plan, full marketing plan.
Right, everything.
Absolute full set of everything. And the stipulation was it did have to be a real company. And I think that the point of it was, which I always really respected about the school, was that you had to go out and network. So before you left your little comfort zone of being in school, they're already pushing you and saying, go out there, go learn how to network. If you can't learn it while you're here, you know, put that in perspective of when you get out. So
right. Yeah. If you can't do it here when it's easy, it's going to be a lot harder for you out there when you actually got to eat.
Right.
So she did that, and you did that, and it was great. I mean, it was awesome. It was everything I wanted it to be. And I was very happy with the work. So one day I'm thinking up this idea, because my mind just never stops, like, hey, what can I get into next? And I came up with the idea for a brand, because at the time this was before like any of the major brands that are out there right now were doing this. The only brands that were really representing tattoo were like, Sailor Jerry, Rocksteady, which is, was more of like the rockabilly culture, but does use art. You had some guys like Tribal. You had,
To Die For was one of them.
What's that?
To Die For was one of them.
To Die For. You had a few. Well, I didn't even know about To Die For when I thought this up, because it was like 2016, 15, 16. And I had
when you had brought it to me, that was the first thing that triggered for me. So maybe it hadn't, like, it was still low.
It hadn't reached me, right? But but the collective all kinds of sort of thinks at the same pace. So tattooing was starting to really, branch out. It was becoming more and more acceptable. This was pre-shows and all that stuff, but it was really starting to expand, and the quality of the art and the reputation of the industry was getting better all the time. Like there had been a real effort to kind of remove it from sort of a stigmatized, biker and perceived as a negative industry. So I just had this idea with all that we had done and all the amazing artists that I had doing guest spots at the shop and coming into town. I was like, man, nobody ever sees these people's work. So I was like, it would be really cool to make a brand that was like something that could be in the major stores or potentially in the major stores that represented these works from these artists, these men and these women that are doing this awesome stuff. That I had like 50 tattoo shop shirts, right? That was the clothing industry for the tattoo industry. The only real brand was one shirt at a time from each shop. That was the only collection of artists that you could get that range of just working class tattooers and artists all in one place. And I had a bunch of them, and they were really cool because each one told its own story. And I think that really inspired me to like think about this brand that could, encompass all that. So I hit you up. And I said, hey, I did a mock-up, just like a sketch business idea of like what I would need. I'd need a graphic artist. I'd need somebody that could work e-commerce. I needed somebody that could do, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, if you know anybody, because you're getting out of school and you'd already done the project with me, I was like, if you know anybody that could do these things, these are the people that I would need. And we're on the phone. And as I'm saying it, I'm hearing myself going, oh man, like, she really could do all of the things I need. And you were thinking the same thing, as we found out later. But I didn't, probably the only time in my life regarding you, I didn't just like bulldoze it right then and be like, hey, you need to come do this. Let's do this now. I was like, man, this is a lot. And I know she's graduating and I know she's got other job opportunities. So let me just like feel this out. And we kind of wrapped it up, and we both kind of knew. And we talked about it lightly and said we were going to follow up on it the next day or whenever. It's like we'd get back on the phone soon and you would think it over. And then you told me that what did you think?
So I was like, oh, let me get back to you, whatever. Because as you were going, you would be like, oh, I need somebody who can do this. And I was like, oh, I could do that. And then you would ramble off something else. Oh, I'm familiar with that. This is what I could do, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, maybe we can do this, always just like spinning off another idea. And so I wanted to say yes, but it was super early 20s and I'm trying to be an adult. And I know that adults don't just say yes on a whim and with their whole entire life decisions. So
Right.
I hung up with you. And I called Joe, and I was like, was like, hey, yo, Chris offered me this job opportunity. What do you think? And he goes, I think you should do it. Did you say yes? And I was like, no, I'm being an adult. Look at my adultness. So I waited the full 24 hours that my made up adult time limit. And I called you.
What are you buying, a gun?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. So yeah, but I called you back the next day and I was like, yeah, let's do this.
Yep.
So.
And then we just started, and here we are, like 11 years later. And there's nothing in between. But so we thought about it, and we started like crunching it up right there. Now you lived in South Florida. I was in Ocala, which was like 5 hours bus ride drive.
Oh yeah, see, and bus ride is also a caveat. I didn't drive yet. I had not learned to drive.
No, I taught you to drive.
No one taught me to drive.
I taught her to drive.
You did. You taught me to drive many years later, but
yes.
Yeah, so I didn't know how to drive, so I had to take the bus every time that I wanted to
or
go.
I came down and got you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we would do that.
I would take the bus up because we would do like jewelry runs and stuff too. So.
Right. So what we did was we started talking, and I had other things that I still did. I still had a route where I sold jewelry and things like that, nationwide, shop to shop. And you would come with me on some of those, and it would kind of like sort of breaking in that like feel of getting out there, walking into shops. Kind of, you were getting an exposure that way too, which is why I did that job. Like the reason I took that position and partnered with Hillary was because I had never gone door to door to door. Because in Ocala, like my shop got really big, and we became the shop in like a 3-county radius, and we were it. And in a small town like that, you can get really, really big in that tiny pond really fast, and it can kind of get to your head, and you get kind of just stifled out. And so going on the road was great, because as soon as I leave Florida, it was just me on the road again, and it's like, as anybody, just like completely anonymous and walking around cities, coming up to Philly, going across the country to California, everywhere. So I had already gotten kind of that handle on going out there and just meeting people straight out the gate, both warm and cold calling. And then you started doing that with me, and you got a feel for it. And we started laying out the whole project right there in the car. And we would go to different artist shops. Some of the artists ended up being, integrated into the brand, and talk with them about it. And everybody seemed super supportive. And because of my time out in the industry doing the show circuit with the shop and then with the jewelry line and stuff like that, I'd already met a lot of these people. And excuse me, I'm just burping up over here. And so I already had a pretty good network, and you had a network as well. So wherever places that we went, we kind of already knew people. And I had just always been friends with artists. It was just a thing. I had collected tattoos, I'd had the shop, and it just kind of all made sense, which was a big opening for us too, because we would go around, shop to shop once the brand was there. That's forward, got to back up. So as we put this all together, we look at this thing, we Google search it, and we're like, where are fashion shows? Where do you drop a line, a brand? And we saw that it was Magic in Vegas. It was the world's largest fashion apparel show. So we're like, all right, cool. So we got a little money together, and we flew out to Vegas, and we stayed there. I believe we stayed at the Golden Nugget.
We did.
First time.
Before it was renovated.
Before it was renovated, yeah, when it was still old Fremont style. So we went to the Golden Nugget. It was nice, though. And we went out there, and we went over to the fashion show, Magic, and we walked the whole thing. If I had accidentally not recorded the previous one we did of this, you'd already know this. But we walked booth to booth and collected tons of magazines and books and catalogs and stuff like that, just as a buyer, because we used the shop as the name to go to it. So
we were so ill prepared. You had to have credentials, so we were missing certain credentials, and I was making business cards that we didn't really. Yeah,
she made them up.
Yeah, like, oh, no problem. I'll go get that, and we printed it and cut it out or whatever, and had like ridiculous stuff to people.
And then we went back to Vegas to Magic. We're like, we're business people, and they were like, oh, okay, cool. And we got to meet a lot of people. We made some contacts that we're still in touch with today. We had a great time. We learned a lot of information, tons, and you know, kind of got a feel for it. And I remember being in there and looking around, and I mean, it's a big deal. There's, you know, $100 million companies in there. And I remember just thinking, like, if this is the type of sharks that are in this tank, like, we're fine. Like, we could do this. That's no big deal. As far as, like, you know, you don't know if an environment is going to feel like comfortable to you, if it's going to be intimidating, if it's going to be off-putting. And we just both dug it. We're like, yeah, man, this is cool. This is a great adventure. So we came back from Vegas, bruised from straps of tons of paper materials over our shoulders. Far more information than we needed.
Like the hip, because it was one of those side bags.
Yeah, totally more than we needed.
Yeah.
We did it totally ridiculously. And
it was actually important because all of those materials, I went through every single one, and I looked at the way that they set up their spreadsheets. I looked at the way that they had done their SKU systems. I looked at how they had, you know, modeled their catalogs and what the more successful versus the less successful companies' catalogs look like. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, this is how we're going to do it, because this is, there's obviously a trend of this is how it should be. Right, for layout and everything else. And it was great because when we got there, like, we noticed that exactly what we were talking about doing wasn't there. Like, we did not run into something that was a duplicate. So we went around to brands that we felt were similar in genre, right? That would be kind of like, you know, peers, and met them all. And I did it just like I did my shop. When I moved to Ocala, I went door to door to every shop and said, hey, this is my name. This is the address I want to move to. I want to put a shop in here. I just wanted to meet you because I know that you guys are here first. And I just wanted to, you know, just make my introduction. Just me, nobody else, just walked in and did it. And everybody was like, nice to meet you, and shook my hand. And everybody but one shop came to our grand opening. So with the brand, it was the same thing. We walked around. We said, hey, we're Chris and Aurora. We want to start this brand. We didn't even have a fucking name yet. We said, we want to start this brand. And we didn't have the name when we went to Vegas, right? We did have a name, but we already had the name when we went to Vegas. Right. Yeah. That was crazy. Steadfast Brand. You want to know how it came? I'll back up real quick, and then I'll start back up with introducing ourselves. We had it once we were vending, but when we walked around the first time, we thought it was going to be, do you want to say the old name? Oh, okay, so we didn't have it yet. We had a ton of names. We were talking about Riff Raff Productions. Yeah, but Riff Raff Productions was what you pursued the most, and when we walked around the first time, that's what we said. It was going to be Riff Raff Productions, and the entirety of Steadfast Brand, my folder for Steadfast said Riff Raff, because that's how it started, and I didn't want to have to remember a new folder. So there was always a Riff Raff folder on my computer for the entire decade. And let's explain that real quick, because this Riff Raff is me from the 90s, before the Riff Raff guy with the gold teeth and stuff was ever around or anything like that. Back, if you're listening to this and you're really old, you're from Orlando and possibly the club scene in Orlando. My nickname was Riff Raff back then. Nobody even knew my name was Chris. Like, Chris sucks. It's like such a boring name. Sorry to all the Chris's out there. Inevitably, there's going to be thousands listening. If there's 1,000 people, it'll be 999 Chris's. But that was my nickname. So when I got sober and changed everything, my first company name, the corporate name, was actually Riff Raff Productions, and it was DBAs doing other things. So that was what the brand was going to be. It was Riff Raff Productions. But it turns out when you do a true search with a lawyer and search names, there was tons of things named Riff Raff. So we kept going down name after name after name for like 6 months, like leading up to going to Vegas. For like 6 months, we were looking for names. And it was crazy because we had art, we had concepts, we had designs, we had stuff mocked up, and no name, because we hit dead ends. I think we hit 2 or 3 paid dead ends, like $1,500 examinations by a lawyer to see if we could actually use it. Boom, 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 one after the other. And so I called up a buddy of ours, Joey DeZormo of Infinite Irons, and I was talking with him, and I was like, just kind of venting, you know what I mean? He was just somebody I sounded off of back then, him and Amy. And I go, dude, I know we'll get there. I know we just got to stay steadfast. And I was like, oh, man. So I was like, there's no way that's available. So we looked it up, and sure enough, man, that had been a name for 40 years by Sarah Lee Corp. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but whatever. Sarah Lee Corp. It's dead now. They can do it. Yeah, it's dead now. We own it. And it was and it was 10 years. They owned it for 40 years.
It had expired a couple of months before our search, and they still had a couple months. You have a 6-month window to get it. And we just kind of felt everything was too aligned for it. It made too much sense. It was too much of a chance. And there's these like wolves that are out there that go buy up names as they go out, which I can't believe nobody had bought that up. But they'll buy expired names in the off chance that they can do something with it if it's already got a strong name. So we went ahead and got it, and we started making stuff, made like catalogs, made everything, made clothes, with the stuff on it. And before we actually could, before we were assured that we had it. So we did that, and it all worked out. It was meant to be that name. It was meant to be Steadfast. And we added Brand because we felt like that would be something we could drop if we wanted. We ended up not doing it because
we couldn't just trademark Steadfast because it's just a word, and you can't trademark.
It's harder. You could do it, but you put yourself at much more risk. With a second word on your name, it helps a lot. Or you just make something up, like Volcom. You just make up a word, but then you have to explain to everybody what it is. The reason we're telling you all this stuff.
TOSOTT.
Yeah, right? No, nothing. That's nothing. But we're telling you all this, everybody, for our story, just so you also hear a little bit about it. And if you're searching for something or you're looking to do something, I had zero training in this. I do sales because I'm the type of personality that can sell stuff if I like it. If I believe in something, I can sell it. And I've always been that way. And even if it wasn't for money, even if it was the transaction of just getting something to somebody else that I liked and I felt that they should have, I've kind of always just been like that.
You just have to like something. You're like, I went to the store today. Let me sell you this thing that I saw.
Yeah, and that's why, like, a lot of times when I buy people Christmas gifts, I actually buy one for myself because I just like stuff. And then
if I'm sushi bazookas?
Like sushi bazooka. I got everybody a sushi bazooka. Everybody got a sushi bazooka. It was great. If you go watch the Vanny Vicious podcast, at the end of it, I'm showing her the sushi bazooka, and she's looking at it at the end, and she's like, "Holy shit! How do you know? I didn't. Oh, I released it. It's out now.
It is.
Yay! You watched it?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
So far, it's doing very well. It's Vanny is an awesome personality, and she is a go-getter. Like, she pushes shit. So I love Vanny. And sushi bazooka. Did you hear what I said about it? The Japanese seeing something like that. Sushi bazooka. They'd be like, "You American assholes." This is like a time-honored tradition. Like, we take this really seriously. Like squirting it out of a caulk gun.
No, we're American. No.
Yeah, bazooka.
Bazooka.
Nick sushi. So you got fish sticks and like.
Have you used it yet?
I have not used it yet. I've not used my sushi bazooka yet.
I watched it today.
You watched it today? I wasn't gonna watch it.
It's gross looking.
Nah, it's good. Sushi. Fish, they're clean. They're in the ocean. The salt water will counteract any bacteria and you'll get it. So we're telling you this stuff in case anybody's like out there thinking about, hey, I really want to try something, but, I don't have the resources or I don't have the knowledge or I don't have this, that, and the other. I didn't know jack. And you knew stuff in
resources or knowledge, guys.
And you knew stuff in theory. You know application. You didn't go do your you got out of med school and then you go do your internship. You're just like what you should have done, like rationally.
Here's the other thing about that though. When we first started, because I was young and because I knew I didn't have a lot of application, I let a lot of people tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. And even though I knew, I was like, no, I've sent stuff in before. I'm pretty sure that this is the right way that I'm doing it. I let people tell me that it was wrong, and they were wrong.
Yeah.
And we went in a lot of circles with a lot of people, and we wasted some money sometimes with people telling me that I wasn't doing things the right way. And until I had confidence in myself to be able to say, nope, I'm not wrong. Like, I know that this is the right way to do it. Just take another 5 seconds with the file, or, let's talk about it another way. Maybe I'm not expressing myself correctly. And like having the patience and the confidence to stand behind what I was doing. I really feel like that should be a thing said too. I know that most of the time it's the other way around where you're like, headstrong and cocky and you're like, I know everything. And then you get out there and you don't really know everything.
You're the cash me outside girl, apparently.
Right. But But I really did. I really did know what I was doing, and there were some people that jerked us around.
Yeah.
Because
And to be fair, there
that's
was
what
a
I
lot you
wanted.
learned as you went along too. We had some great mentors, some great counsels.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But you know, for me, for advice for other people, if you have that gut feeling that you really do know what you're doing, and don't get frustrated. Don't get frustrated when you have to go into that circle of you sent something the right way the first time. They drag you through 15 other steps until you send it exactly the same way you sent in the first time. That happens. And
Right.
don't let it hurt you. Don't let it affect you. Don't give it another time of day. Just
Right.
know that the next time that you do it, instead of doing like how I did, I would go through the same stupid 15 steps again. Don't do it. Just be like, no, I know this was exactly how we said it the last time. Can you please take a look at it again? Like, have patience, have kindness. The more kindness that you have to back with it, the more they'll be like, oh, okay, she is right, or
Kill
he
them with
is right.
kindness.
Yeah, kill it with kindness always.
Yep. Well, almost always.
That's what you're there for. I'm there
Yeah,
for
that's true.
That's
True.
me.
And for me, the biggest thing for me is, regardless of what anybody thinks about like my ego and my awareness of my own ego and like whatever it is, at any given time, I was never one to not ask questions. Like I have never had a problem saying, hey, person who has been doing this and that I could learn from, I don't know Jack, and I would like to one day, aspire to accomplish a goal. And I believe that you have a resource that would benefit. And I would be, totally open if you ever want to talk to me about anything. And everybody did. All the other brands, all the other manufacturers, all the other places sat down because I was absolutely open. And people want to teach other people what they know. Most everybody. There's a few people who want to pretend they have a monopoly on truth that learned it from somebody else or somewhere else. And then they want to try and act like they own it. And you find that in life, and you find that in religions, and you find that in a lot of stuff, just a lot of stuff. That's really my biggest advice. If you don't know something, ask people who do, because they want to talk. People love to talk. I love to talk. You want to sit down and talk with me? I'm going to talk. I'll tell you everything I know. And
you want to sit down and listen to him.
Yeah, I listen. I'm a good talker. I'd be a terrible podcaster if I'm not letting anybody say anything. But that's really my advice, man. If you got something you want and you got something that you feel like is exciting to you, go after it. Go after it and do what you want. I don't know jack about podcasting. I don't know jack about starting a clothing brand or opening a tattoo parlor. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know how to do anything in life until I did. You know what I mean? It's like it ties down to the whole hat thing. People are like, I'm not a hat person. And I'm like, you want to be a hat person? Put a hat on. The next person that sees you thinks you're a hat person. Same thing. Like the first time you have an item of the thing you're trying to do, whether you're trying to be a chef, start a clothing line, build websites, do whatever, the very first time you do one and you have anything to show for your effort, the next person you meet thinks you're a pro, thinks that you've been doing this your whole life, born into it, and you're wildly successful and rich and have houses all over the world. This is the way it is, man. It's all perception.
That's just you, man. That's just you.
Fake it, man. Fake it until you make it. And act as if. Act as if is a really cool mantra that I learned in one of my periods of life where you had to learn shit was act as if. And it just means play the part, present yourself in a way, imagine yourself as what you want to be. And it'll work. All the things will come to you, and the advice will come, and the information will come, and the books will come, and the people will come into your life because you manifest. You manifest your reality. Manifestation of thought is something that I've always repeated, is because whatever you think most about becomes. And that's what we did with Steadfast. We're like, all right, so that's our goal. This is what we want. And sure enough, one by one, things came along. Opportunities came. It wasn't easy. It was never easy. But I set some goals at the beginning. I said 5 years. I figured this was a 10-year thing, right? Because most of the brands we found out, the big brands have been around for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You know what I mean? People have been around a lot longer than you think. There's a lot of companies today that if you look at their history, they were started in the 1800s. Like, it's crazy. Your insurance companies, a lot of your product lines, a lot of stuff like that. And even some of the newer brands that I thought were new brands to the scene weren't. They were like 10, 20, 30 years old. I was floored. A lot of them had changed ownership. They had morphed, they had developed, they had merged, things like that. So we started the brand, Steadfast. We really liked the name. We liked the message. Our initial motto was what it means to be driven. And it was just an experiment in chasing what you wanted, just chasing, just going after something and putting all your heart into it, putting everything on the line, risking everything, throwing caution to the wind. All the cliches that you hear was exactly what that was an exercise in. And somebody like me can do that really, really easily. So somebody like me needs somebody like Aurora to say, hey, are you sure you want to throw everything off the cliff right now? And I can be like, yes, I want to throw everything off the cliff. How the hell is everything going to get off the cliff if I don't throw it?
And I'm like, how about we throw like 2 things and then see what happens, and then we'll throw the rest of them in.
And then I'll think about it. Usually I'll just throw everything off the cliff anyway, but at least it gives me time to reflect on it to see if everything should really go off the cliff, because it gives you that sounding board. So whether it's a partner in business, whether it's a mentor, whether it's whatever the situation is, have somebody there to help check where you want to go. The other side of that, and I give advice to the person who plays that other role, be careful that you don't hold them back too much, because you need to exercise your caution, but you also need to trust the instinct of the person that you sign up with. You know what I mean? I think we found that out later on. We got a little bit better at that, was that you also have to believe in the ambition, and you have to just try and be there to pick up after them sometimes. And patch wounds.
We had to work on how we spoke with one another, like
yeah.
Like what it really meant. So yeah. we had this running, it eventually was a running joke, but at first it was very personal and you were very angry that I said it. But I would tell you, oh, I hate this. It's going to be awesome. And you were like, what do you mean you hate this?
Yeah, I didn't want to hear that negativity. I was like,
yeah, I was like, no, it's not my cup of tea, but it definitely fits the brand. And because it's not my cup of tea and it kind of rubs me the wrong way, I know it's going to be super successful.
Right. Because I wear stuff and make stuff like this. Shout out to the Puerto Rico Tattoo Expo in Yalzi.
And I'm Archer over here. I don't know.
And you're dressed like Archer, so you're like a terrible person for a brand. But it's good because you have that other side to it. But you would say that and I would be like, blah, blah, blah. And then later it just kind of became a joke. It was also learning like things like the laminated card. The people that are working with you, I'll give you this advice as an owner, multiple business owner. Don't take the people that work for you for granted. Don't assume that they understand their value to you. Refortify it. Encourage it. Do things that bring everybody together. Steadfast had Fat Cats too, had a really good ability to bring everybody together and communicate and enjoy each other's company and reap the rewards of the good times. Because I'll tell you something, every business has ups and downs. Every family, every relationship, everything has these highs and lows, everything, even in our personal life. And if you don't give enough examples and appreciate the times that are good and share that with the people that are helping you along these dreams, then the times that are bad will be insurmountable to them. They will not be able to weather it. And if they do weather it, they will do so with so much spite and so much internal anger and a lack of appreciation, or a feeling of a lack of appreciation for them, that it will not carry. It will not carry them through. And you can't fake that. You can't sell it. You can't market it. You can't give a bunch of shit to people that don't really do anything for the company and then starve out the ones that do, or your family or anything else. You can't spend energy trying to win people over that really aren't about it and are just there for the reward, while you have the actual meat and potatoes of the brand working every day and doing hard work every day and supporting you every day. And with very few exceptions, with Steadfast, our crew, our core crew, stayed for really long periods of time. And it wouldn't be until there would be a breakdown of communication, just like in everything, just like every relationship. Once you start talking honestly, openly about the way you feel about things, and you let it pile up, that's the only time we ever lost anybody, really.
And sometimes we took too much consideration into that. Like, I had a couch in my office that was like a therapy couch, and people would come in and just blow off their steam and go back to work.
Yep.
And that was good. The only time it was not good was in the beginning of that, because they would come in, they would blow off their steam, and I would take it too seriously. I always liked our dichotomy, because you kind of need that. You kind of explained it even at your shop, that people would come over and they would, talk to Brian about stuff, and Brian would relate back with whoever it was. And if it was really important, that's when you bring it to you. And sometimes I would bring things that were not actually important, because I just didn't know yet. I didn't have enough experience in that managerial role, because it was just the two of us for such a long time that after a while, I liked that people were comfortable enough to come in and blow it off and send them right back out into the world and be like, hey, I'm on your team. I'm also on his team. This is where he's coming from. This is what he really means. Maybe he didn't say it that way, but that's how it was. And they'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. It wasn't personal at all. And they'd go back out and be happy again and just chilling. But, like you said, that was hard. It was really, I know it wasn't your first experience with having people work for you, but it's definitely mine. And I wasn't perfect. But towards the end there, I am really proud. I'm really proud of how I handled it, because now I've worked for other people that aren't us. And
it is what it is.
Yeah. I've seen different kinds of situations. I'm like, oh, I'm really proud of what I did. I didn't know to do those things. I've seen people that I respect do the things that I did. And I'm like, oh, it does feel awesome as an employee to have that happen. Cool. There is that mutual respect. And I would cut people out a little bit faster than we did. If I had the opportunity to have people employed for us again, you can kind of see when they're going their own way, and that's okay. And it's okay to all right, enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. We can leave this on a good note, instead of trying to drag it out. I think that.
Oh, absolutely. Got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them,
Yeah.
And,
I think that was what I learned.
And before we had couches and therapy sessions, we launched. We did our first runs of everything. It's 8 shirts, and we had some buckles from Buckle Down, which are awesome people. Ross Labelson is a super cool guy, and Buckle Down is a really cool brand. Shout out. I'm trying to get a sponsorship from that cat, as you can tell. And we had a few products, and we hit the road. And we went out. We had a little e-commerce store. We'd sell a shirt a week. And we hit the road, and we went shop to shop, because I had such a large network of tattoo shops that I've been dealing with for so long. We would just show up, and we'd have the jewelry, and then be like, hey, we also have this brand. And we'd show this stuff, and they would just buy it retail from us. It was crazy. A couple of them would buy small wholesale orders, but they didn't know who the fuck we were. So they knew who we were, but they didn't know what it was. So we started like that, and we would just go show to show. And we started getting some traction. We went out to Vegas. We launched at Magic. We landed some accounts right out the gate. We had Blue Banana out of London. We had a couple of shops in the States. They put in a few orders, and we had what we thought was a shitload of money. It was oh my God, we made this much money in sales. We're this is crazy. So we had that. We felt really good. It was an amazing feeling to have gone to Vegas seen what the world was like there. And in 6 months, we had a name and a brand and merchandise and product, and we're at a booth. I mean, 6 months, that's nothing. Like, we were able to put that together super fast, super slapped together. I'm super proud that we ever were able to do that at all, much less in that amount of time. Got some sales, got on the road, things started going. We had our first year. We did 80,000 miles on the road that year. I had gotten a different truck. I bought a different truck so that we could just take it around. And we had the entire brand in the back of this truck with a camper top on it. And
I got my passport.
Yeah, I got your passport. And we just drove state to state to state.
And by we, you mean you, because I did not have a driver's license.
Yeah, she didn't have a driver's license. So we would just drive all night and all day and just go, man. And just.
But it was cool because you had that cop stand for me. So I had my laptop on the cop stand.
Yeah, I had one of those cop holder, the computer holders that the cops put in their car and look at this far from their face and give you tickets for having your phone up. You know those? We had one of those. And we drove all around, and 80,000 miles that first year, and we're going and we're trucking and we're doing our life. And then 2008 hits and the recession just starts. The bubble bursts and everything ends. And we had just landed Journeys. We had buckles in Journeys, belt buckles. And that was it. We had that. We were just starting. We were just getting our feet under us. And the recession hits. And it goes bad. I have my shop still, which my shop funded the majority of Steadfast Brand. I had a couple of amazing people that backed us as well at the beginning and throughout, but it was really the shop. It carried us from week to week. Like when we didn't earn shit, when we'd earn hundreds of dollars in a month, it was the shop that paid us.
And when the shop couldn't pay me, I would just do freelance work. I was previous to that doing freelance graphic design and printing and stuff. So there were many times when there wasn't enough money to have a paycheck, and I was like,
right,
I'll just hustle a little bit harder. I'll,
land a job,
do a few more things, talk to people around where I am, because everybody always needs flyers or something, right?
Yep.
So,
and that's what we did, man. When you would see us at shows and things like that, you didn't know that I would go borrow the gas money to go to a show, and we would drive to a show because we couldn't afford to fly, couldn't afford to ship it. So we'd load it up, drive in the truck, go straight to a show, check in. I'd work out deals with the promoters because they were all friends, and they would let us pay at the end. And so we'd get there, and whatever we earned that show paid our hotel room, paid our booth, and paid the gas money back when we got back. And more often than not at the beginning, it wasn't profitable. We lost money every time, but it got us out there. And we
were big fans of buffet breakfasts, because you would just eat a big buffet breakfast. You like put some fruit in your pocket.
Yep. I'll steal fruit today. I pay $150 or $200 a night for a room. All your bananas and oranges are gone.
Yeah, but we were stealing those fruits because we needed to make it through the rest of the day. Like, oh, they got peanut butter packets here. That's great. That's going to last a while.
Ooh, crackers.
Yeah.
Get some crackers, and I'm going to snack on those later. And all the while, people would ask, how are you guys doing? And we would always say, great. We're doing amazing. We're doing awesome. Not a dime to our name, massively in debt, struggling to get show to show. And people would say, how you doing? We're doing great. And why did I say that? Because we chose that. We weren't victims. We didn't have anything happen to us. The housing bubble ain't got shit to do with me. And
I mean, it did, but that's cool.
What's that?
I said, yeah, it did, but that's cool.
I was a victim of it, and I bought a house for it. They gave me a house. It was retarded. But there was no reason to ever tell anybody that we were struggling, because everybody struggles. I mean, it's a knee-jerk reaction. How you doing? Oh, there's challenges today. Yeah, no, really? Cool. Like, that's interesting. Puerto Rico is still without power. Tell me all about your strife. I put up a video the other day of this dude making these freaking clay characters of like Hello Kitty and these little Marios and all this stuff. Dude ain't got no hands. He's got two nubs And this cat is making these freaking clay things on the street, putting them on a stick and selling them. And they're amazing. And he's doing this with these two nubs, and he's making art. I posted it on my personal Facebook, and I said, one time, and you remember this story, I wrote, one time I almost knocked myself out moving a box. I picked up a box and I moved it really fast from this side to this side, caught myself in the chin, saw white, almost passed out. I almost knocked myself out cold moving a box of shirts from right to left. And this dude's making freaking Hello Kitties out of clay with two nubbins. I'm like, that dude's badass. So I wrote underneath it, tell me about your problems. Complain to me that you have ice outside, you know what I mean, in winter.
And it's cold.
Yeah, it's cold. It's winter. But I was just amazed. And that was our point. That was the point of that side of the story, was like, there's always challenges. We get there's challenges. But if you focus on your challenge, you will breed more challenge. If you talk about and project that all the time, you're going to hear that. Aurora knew, you knew what my problems were. I could vent to you. I had a couple of people to the side that I could vent to when it came to us and to the stuff that like you didn't need to hear again. I had my people that I could communicate with on those things, and the rest of it, we were selling an idea. It was never about shirts. These were mantras. None of this was about shirts. We had 140 product ideas when we started this. It was never about that. Shirts were just the easiest thing to sell to people, for other people to see it. Yeah, the belt buckle, you don't see that it's a Steadfast belt buckle, but the shirt, you see it. And it gave a message. That's why we had things like follow no one, tattooed and employed, remain steadfast, staying the course in stormy seas. Those things were not just, ways to like put words together for design. We were telling something to ourselves that if you thought of something that you believe in and you want it to come to fruition, do it. We had our goal of 5 and 10 years. 5 years for sustainability, 10 years to merge or sell. I never got into anything to do that thing forever. These were all stages. And it was all about what will this opportunity provide? Because in life, you got to go in a direction to get somewhere. You have to start. All those cliches, man, every journey starts with a step. All of those things are real.
You gotta go somewhere to get somewhere.
Yeah. You don't stand for something, you fall for anything. All of those things are legitimate. And they seem cliche because we hear them all the time, but we don't often hear them. Once you hear one of those things and you understand one of those things and you embody them, then things become different. That's why your words are very important. And your names of the projects that you do are very important. And the definitions behind words that are very important. And steadfast meant something to us. The definition of steadfast means something. And I felt that was always an advantage with us, was that not everybody else's concept meant anything. It meant something to them, but the words that people would choose set a different tone. And nobody was really setting the tone we were setting, because to be motivational and positive, as we always tried to be and to reflect, often comes across as corny.
Yeah.
And hokey. And it's why Christian rap is terrible, because they just can't get coolness.
Hey man, Christian music's cool, man.
No, it's not.
I like a lot of Christian ska. I will put that out there in the world.
Well, that's great. I got a goldfish. But the point was, we were trying to say something. We were trying to express something. And because of the nature of the environment, these are espresso beans covered in dark chocolate. They are amazing. And we were always trying to say something, mostly to ourselves, because we hit a 10-year plan that got hit at 1 year in hard, more than most people could sustain at any given time. And if it wasn't for my amazing crew at Fat Cats backing and supporting week to week to week, it wouldn't happen. And every dollar that I would have got from my shop, from the time we opened Steadfast till the day I sold the shop, every penny was just put into Steadfast. That was it. Every dollar. So Steadfast, aside from the initial help from very good friends that believed in us and backed us and supported us, all of it came right from a shop. That money came out of a tattoo parlor right into a tattoo inspired clothing brand. But it was never a tattoo clothing brand. It was always just a life clothing brand. And we just happened to be tattooed and knew a lot of tattooers. So it just kind of all came together. That was going to be our platform. So we're on the road. We're getting it. Things start to get better. We got a new president. Things started happening. The economy got progressively better, despite what anybody else from certain news platforms try and tell you. For the entire 8 years, things got better. Slowly, but reasonably, seeing out where it came from. And as things got better, Journey's got a little more, lenient with the money. Some more stores started opening up. E-commerce got better. And right about 5 years in, just shy of 5 years, social media connected in a big, big way. We had gotten on with Inked Magazine as our first e-commerce third-party store.
We did that pretty early on in the game too.
We did.
Yeah.
And it was good right out the gate. I mean, it was always a strong platform. It was neat. We had never done a third-party one. We would sell from our own e-commerce, and we're like, oh, there's these other people. And it took us a while to buy into it, and we did. And that worked out. And then
it was a perfect storm for them too, because they
was.
had the money and the means to make certain things happen that we never could have.
Oh, absolutely. And then we found some other online stores, and we started branching out into those.
And then they started finding us, which was also pretty awesome.
Right. And we had gone through a couple of helpers. We had Steve. He worked with us up in Ocala, and he actually moved to Orlando with us.
I actually think that's a pretty good, steadfast fact. I think it's really just you in general. It doesn't really have to do anything with Steadfast. You had this thing where you would just, people that worked for you eventually lived for you at some point in time.
Lived with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this bad habit of hiring all my friends for most of my life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would just hire everybody I knew at one capacity or another for one of my companies or whatever. I'd be like, hey, I know you. You want a job? And
so in our varying states of homelessness, we'd be like, can we?
Yeah, we took in a lot of misfits off the street. There was people that actually had nowhere to live. We took people right off of their mom's couches. We took people out of their cars. And
sometimes people were really in bad situations.
They were really, really bad situations.
Yeah.
And as long as you were trying to do better
mm-hmm.
with your life and you were trying to do something more, I'd end up hiring you. And then you'd end up living with us for some reason. I always had people that worked for me live with me, like my whole freaking adult life. I don't know where that came from.
You know what I think it is? I think neither one of us can live alone. We're just not those people.
I had a pretty good time living alone in Orlando for the year.
Hey, alone. Okay, go on. It's fine.
Nobody else lived there.
Not technically.
There was never anybody there 2 nights in a row. Them was the days. So it was just kind of a habit, so it kind of was like a transitional thing. And I like that, whether it was the shop or whether it was, the jewelry company or whether it was Steadfast. Somebody was always in a transitional state, and that fit right in with a transitional brand, right? A transitional concept, which was stay the course. You know what I mean? Remain steadfast, focus, work. Use this space and this time to learn skills, develop your character, stabilize yourself, and then move on. Nobody's supposed to do any one thing forever. We're way past the day of getting the job and retiring at it. That's just not a thing. I give mad props to people that live that life, but I've never been able to be that person. I think I had my shop 2.5 years before I was on the road doing other stuff. It's just been my thing. Steadfast was definitely the longest hands-on project I ever had.
What? I think that people assume that that's easy. To just, go on this path and stick on this life and go through it and then you retire and get your whatever. I have my hats off to those people because when you're in a career path like that, you have to put up with a lot.
You have to put up with a lot. Any mistake, any misstep can cost you everything that you've put in.
Right. And even if it doesn't, it's going to put you through such an emotional hardship, and people are going to never let you forget that, at least for a long period of time. And you just have to push your way through whatever that is. So I have a lot of respect for people that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this 9 to 5, and I'm going to do it for 40 years.
Yep.
Like,
I agree.
It's a committed relationship, and
It is.
that's a lot of work.
It is. And I also respect that because I'm way too scatterbrained for it.
Yeah.
I just don't have that personality. I like building things. I like the idea of doing something I've never done before, figuring it out. And then if it turns into maintenance, I can't deal with it. That's not what I do. I don't.
Forte.
No, I don't like that shit. So I always like to be building something. So that's what Steadfast was so cool for, because it had all these opportunities and it had all these different arms. It reached into everything. I mean, we did everything from music and sports and fashion and tattoo and, graphic and everything, fine art. We just did everything. We had an art gallery. We had a ton of stuff,
It made it very difficult for other people. I mean, it still does. Like, nobody really knows what I do or what I did for Steadfast, because there is no one word answer.
No.
Not one thing.
You're my partner. That's enough.
That was really what it was. Oh, we need a website. I figured that out.
Yep.
We need shirt graphics. I figured that out. Oh, we need to send things to a company. You have to write a PO. I figured that out.
You got to make 2 catalogs a year. You got to do this. You got to do, everything. Absolutely. You have to get familiar with e-commerce and then third-party e-commerce and every other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a one-woman show for a while, and
right.
just trying to figure it out, and then training people to do just small pieces of what I was doing, and really realizing, I'm doing a lot.
Right.
Only 2 of us knew how to do it. So I didn't think twice about it. I didn't think this is such a heavy burden for me. No, I want this to be successful. Let me do everything that I can do to make sure that it is successful. And then as we added on people, I'm like, it was a lot. I was doing a lot.
And that's a great lesson for whatever you do in life. If you choose to do something and then bitch about it and do it poorly, that just reflects you. You made bad choices. And then once you made those choices, you perceived them as bad. And then once you were in it, you proved to be a poor contributor. You proved to be a bad employee or a bad worker or a bad unit. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. Like, if you were in the military, you signed up for the military, you go out with your group of people, because it can be anybody now. It depends on what you're in, but you go out and do your mission. You can't be out there just be like, man, I ain't firing my gun today. Fuck that. I'm throwing my gun on the ground. I'm just going to walk ahead of everybody. You just can't do those things. And you got to remember that when you buy into something or commit to something, give it everything. Give it your all. Even if you don't like it, it's still your choice. Like, you've made this deal. And if you really don't like it that much, get out of it. But don't harm it because you feel like you've made a mistake or it didn't live up to your expectation. And that's another lesson to really take away with. Like, you don't get involved in somebody else's project, and then you can be observant, you can contribute to it, you can have your opinions on decisions that are made, but don't pull it down. Don't tear down somebody else's dream just because you didn't like what it did or did not do for you. And we had that happen, and it made me hyper aware of not doing that to somebody else's. Doesn't mean you can't vent. Doesn't mean you can't talk about it. Doesn't mean you can't offer actual solutions, which is really how you affect something. Is you got something to say, offer something better. Because if you're not offering anything better to the project or to the concept, and you're just going to bitch and sit back and like complain about how it should be and how it should have been and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but you contribute nothing as an alternative, shut up. Your point means nothing. So, I mean, that's just the whole hard truth of it. And I've seen that example now from an external point of view and an internal point of view, that like, I need to make sure I'm contributing to something or I need to not harm it. Because it really sucks if somebody else or some other group of people have worked really, really hard on something for a really long time, and you pledged your support to that thing, and then you take a direct assault on that thing and do what you can to harm it, and know that you're harming it, and know that you're hurting the efforts of other people that you aligned yourself with. Just back the fuck up. Just get out of it. But don't harm them. and don't tear down what they've done just because you fell short of your own expectations or you feel entitled that they should have done more for you. So
And
that's
on the other end of it, if you got somebody in your crew that's doing that, you should probably let them go.
You should let them go and let them go quick. Downsizing was a massive problem for me. I never wanted to let anybody go. Everybody kind of worked their way out themselves. Like when it would be the end of their time, it would kind of happen. And downsizing is important, and it's a very adult thing to do in business, and it's a very difficult thing to do if you're actually trying to take care of your people. Through the entire recession, everybody at my shop got paid every week. Not me. I didn't get paid for a year one time. But everybody else at the shop got paid, and I suffered it. I lost my credit. I lost a house. I lost a car. You know what I mean? But none of those people ever lost anything because they were working and they bought into it. And I had a responsibility to make that happen. And I've gotten myself in and out of debt repeatedly in my life. And 99.9% of the time, the debt I found myself in was because I gave the money over to people that worked for me and believed in it and counted on it.
And we all make those choices, man.
I'm not complaining about it. Like, that's what you do. You either do that or you do the other. And I don't have any regrets for any of it, and I don't mind it. But I also have pride that everybody else got taken care of, because I can walk away from that, and people can say what they want about their experience with other people, and everybody can have their own whatever. But at the end of the day, you know what your efforts are. You know what your motivation really is. You know what your intent really is. Nobody else can tell you that. Nobody else can take it away from you. So as long as you know you had the best intentions and you tried to make it, power through and make it, you're good, man. Just don't let it eat you up, man. And don't let the opinions of those who just want to, don't let people, scream up so that you can hear them when you're doing your own thing. You know what I mean? Like, just to keep doing you, keep staying steadfast, stay steadfast, remain steadfast, all the things that ever came from the brand, keep doing those and you'll be good. So we go through that period. We hit right at 5 years and boom, everything connects. We hit on with tattoo acceptance in the workplace. Richie found us that link with Griffin and his brother. That was one of the first organic Facebook pages that had over 1 million followers, and they weren't making jack off it. This is back before you did ads, before you did anything. We did an affiliate program with them, and we showed them the tattooed and employed shirt, or that's what we wanted to launch on it, because obviously tattoo acceptance in the workplace. And we had just dropped that in with Journeys. We actually first dropped in with Journeys we'd done a bunch of shirts, but we dropped in I Want a Tattoo President, which hit and did amazingly. And then right after that, we dropped Tattooed and Employed. And
are you sure they were in that order?
They were, absolutely. Because we didn't think they could do two at once. And the president one, Ross actually leaned on them to pick it up because the elections had just happened. And we're like, guys, you're going to miss this. Get this. And when that one,
a Canadian version too, remember?
Right. And then I Want to Tattoo Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. And we dropped it and it hit big time. It was the first all store, all sell shirt we had done with them. And then immediately they did Tattooed and Employed. Many of you probably know us from Tattooed and Employed. It was originally, just the quick version, it was originally going to be called Tattooed and Employable. And the day that Aurora actually designed it, the last minute, I was like, just do Tattooed and Employed. Like, we just kind of like, that's how she and I have always worked. You always have to have somebody you can bounce ideas back and forth with until they sound correct. I would be able to sit there and spit out 10 ideas, bop, 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 bop. And then she would look at them and be like, I like that one. Or she was probably saying, I hate that one. And then that would be the one we would go with. But we dropped that.
For worded shirts, I would always get like a good feeling. I'd be like, this one, this is the one.
Well, our worded shirts were always good because they said something, and that's what Tattooed and Employed said. It wasn't like tattoos.
I'm a big fan of letters. So.
Right. It wasn't like tattooed people come in colors. It was like always trying to say something. Like, I'm not a fan of fuck you, fucking fuck. I get it. It's funny, whatever. But it just wasn't me. And like, I feel like saying fuck you without saying fuck you is always really important. And that shirt's core motivation came from Venice Beach when I was like 18. And I traveled out there with two girls and one of their mom's trucks and credit cards. And we went out to Venice because that's what you do at 18. You take off and go across country with a couple of chicks in a truck. And we got out to Venice Beach, and I get out of a car, and you're like, we're not even modified by today's standards. We're just like got some colored hair and some piercings in and stuff like that. And we get out of the car, we're just kids, you know, and this guy is across the street from us getting out of his car, this older dude, and going into his house. And he just loses it. He's like, you fucking kids, and the way you look, and you're never going to amount to shit, and look at what you're doing. You're never going to have jobs. You're never going to contribute to society, and blah, 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 blah. Stormed off in the house. And I remember just being like, damn, your life sucks. You're like 50, 60 years old, and you're just so mad at somebody else who's clearly doing what they want. And you just have this huge amount of regret for never having tried anything else outside of what you were told. And man, you're just harboring a lot of hate. I mean, damn, somebody pissed in his cornflakes for sure. And that always stuck with me. That guy's action stuck with me. And I knew that I wanted to accomplish something. It took me many years. After that, I was not out there on a missionary job. But it took me a while. But when I did circle back around, people like that attitude towards us was something that always stayed in me. And I was like, you know what? The Tattooed and Employed was a really good slam back on that. And the back of the shirt says, you know, Steadfast Brand employing the tattooed since 2007. Our tattooed mom, tattooed dad, said awesome things on the back, like overcoming stereotypes since 2007. The military line that we did, the tattooed military line, which was an answer to the censorship that the Army had in place and put in place on the soldiers, where they were not allowed to have visible tattoos. They since retracted it, but we did that line, and the back said, protect the rights of those who protect your lives. I believe I'm saying that correct, right?
That's right.
Protect the rights of those who defend your lives. Our lives. I don't know what the fuck the back of the shirt says. I'll have to go grab one and look at it for you. But the point is the same, that we always tried to be like, you know, represent people that choose to modify or express themselves any kind of way, that it, you know, we gave them something to wear with like a sense of pride. And I'll always be super grateful for that. We made something that was always like, we would get those comments from customers. It was just like, I absolutely love this shirt. This has been my favorite thing. Like, I get so many compliments on this. And every time I wear it, people walk up to me and go, I am too. Because even with my shop, it was not the people that were head to toe tattooed that were my favorite. It was the like average Joe that had 5 tattoos and a couple of piercings, and they were under their clothes, and they were a doctor, and they just like, hey, or a nurse or an EMT, and they were just like, hey, I'm really into this too. I just can't show it. And I was always glad that we participated and hopefully chipping away at that, and that we contributed to that social acceptance of that. No, these things don't define us, and here you can do these things, and it's just fine. It's just a part of who you are. So those were always one of the things that I had a lot of pride in what we did.
I liked always hearing other people tell their friends about it. They would walk past the booth and be like, oh, I saw this on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I really love this. Or I saw this in Journeys and I couldn't wait to get my first tattoo so I could wear this. And,
yep,
you know, that was a real thing.
Yeah, we would have people buy it before they got a tattoo as a motivation factor to go get their first tattoo. It was really hilarious.
Or even like at a show, they would get tattooed for the first time, and they hadn't sat through their session yet, but they buy the shirt.
Yep.
And they'd be so excited. They'd be like, I'm going to get my first tattoo today. Yep. I'm getting the shirt so that, you know, I can wear it as soon as I'm tattooed. And I always, you know, even now I tell them, come back to the booth, you know, please show me. I'm so excited for you. Show me what you got done.
Yep. That was the great part about it. That it was just our thing, and it was just us with the clientele, just with the fan base. And that was always much more important to me than any kind of sponsorship or any kind of like celebrity thing. Excuse me. That's why we never gave any shirts to any celebrities. Ice-T came in the booth and bought a shirt.
Let's see a shirt.
Yeah, Maddie Mullins, like all these people just buy it. You know what I mean? They would like it and wear it, and that always meant the most to us. One of the really cool stories was a couple told us they bought the tattooed parent shirt that we had. Each one bought one, and they went over to their parents' house, and that's how they let their family know they were pregnant. And we thought that was awesome. Like, that was such a cool thing, you know? So those things that we got to participate in the community were always the strongest for me. And things like the Boston bombing, when that took place, we didn't really know what to do. Like nobody knows what to do in those times. So we had contact with Inked, obviously, and we had contact with the Claudia Fund through an event they had done in Orlando. And the Claudia Fund is the Dropkick Murphys Foundation. So we hit them up, and it was Boston, of course. So we were like, we contacted everybody and said, hey, we'd like to drop a shirt immediately and give all the proceeds over to the victims. And we knew we wouldn't be able to put a huge dent, but we're like, anything we can do just to show like a token, you know, I mean, the Irish punk rock and tattoo go together really well, right? They're very entangled. So we did that. We put this great shirt together. You designed it. It said support Boston. It had this cool shamrock. We collaborated like we always do, and you design things amazingly like you always did. And we put these tattoo machines, Notch Out, our tattoo machine, Danny Knight's that we used for everything. And we put on the back, you know, Steadfast Brand, Inked, Claudia Fund, Dropkick Murphys. And we sold $23,000 worth of shirts in like a day, 2 days, whatever. Just made it that fast and was able to turn it over through the Claudia Fund, which went directly to the victims. So, you know.
And that might not sound like a ton of money because now crowdfunding is
millions, yeah,
a big entity. But at the time, there was no such thing as crowdfunding. There was no Kickstarter. There was no GoFundMe.
Nope.
This was something that we did that over $20,000 was extremely successful.
Yeah, and, especially for us, we're just
amount of money.
People with a truck.
Right.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and we were just. It wasn't about how much money we gave over. Is it we were able to show and connect an arm from our industries over to people that needed it, and that was amazing. So small things like that, you know, like being able to be a part of the community versus the industry was always important to me. My shop was that way. I never gave any misgiving in my shop. I said, it is always about that customer, but before any of us, before our egos, before punching each other in the balls, before anything that we do in this shop, it's them. Because without them, we can't do any of these ridiculous things. Hey, look, it's a dog. Yeah. Max. What's up, Max? Hi. That's Max, everybody, with his awesome Steadfast collar.
Hi, buddy.
So that was a lot of, you know, that's a bit about us, you know, and from there we took off. That was when Steadfast became more known, and we had the next few years, which were really impressive. They were, we reached many goals that we set. We branched out, we sold nationally, internationally. We worked with a lot of artists. We did a lot of art projects. We had some amazing times and some amazing products and some amazing accomplishments, and got to tell our story really at a global level for such a small brand and a small niche brand. We made a real impact, and we had an amazing crew there in Orlando, and we just continued to grow and develop. And, you know, just, we got to spend a few years just enjoying the fruits of those labors, you know what I mean, at a different level, and just seeing everything, and had the luxury of being able to kind of do as we wanted for a while, which was nice because we struggled for so long to get anywhere, you know what I mean? And it was cool because we were able to see the full fruition of our efforts, and we got a lot of acknowledgement and appreciation and respect from peers, like real peers, like, you know, OG Abel and like Bobby Tribal, like dudes that have been doing this for a long time, since like 89. Bobby, you know, he's had a brand, and he came up to us in Vegas, was like, you know what? I like this company. And I'm like, thanks, man. And he's like, you know why? Because it just looks like you. It doesn't look like anybody else. It doesn't look like these guys over here that are copying these guys over here that are copying these guys over here. And I was like, that means a lot, man. Thank you very much, because it's just us, and we really appreciate that. And he's like, I can tell. He's like, it's good. And then he introduced me to his crew, all these like badass dudes, and they're all like, he's like, this is Chris. He's from Steadfast. And I was like, man, this is amazing. And then OG Abel did damn near the exact same thing in the same day. And it was just good, man. Those were the times that whole compensation is valid thing. It's not about how much you make, because I just spend it anyway. You just put it back into the company and you do all of that. It's the acknowledgement of your efforts and the acknowledgement of the thing you do. So when you're going to set out and you're going to have goals and aspirations, I always tell people to be real careful what you think success is. When you say, I want to be successful, You need to have a real outline of what that is. Is success for you sitting on a beach and being comfortable and relaxing? Go be a surfer. Live in a little house on the beach or near the beach. Work a job that allows you to go surfing a lot. If you think it's relaxing on the beach from a job, from a career, it's a different thing. Your time at the beach is amazing, and you do get to go to places like Costa Rica and Panama, and we did some amazing stuff and traveled to some amazing places. But those moments are very poignant because you're working 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And when you do get to take a day off or a short break off, it feels like gold. I mean, liquid gold. I'm not taking anything from it. The rewards from doing this and doing this adventure with you surpass anything. And it makes the moments now in my life that are calmer and that are at a different speed all that much more rich. And I'm grateful for every day, no matter how hard it was, no matter how insane it was. So before we go into that detail, we'll explain where we're at now. So we ran through the next few years of life and just crushed. We just did it. Then Facebook and social media and e-commerce changed. And anybody that has a social media platform and relies on e-commerce and has for a long period of time is aware of this. E-commerce and social media reach is down well over 90, 95%, in some places 99% and more. And those games change. And our brand, aside from the chains that we were in, was very much connected to social media, because you can only actually make so much money going to shows. That's really advertising. That's marketing. You're there, you're making some money, you're meeting everybody, you're having a great time, you're traveling the world, which is everything. I mean, this decade we saw more places in the world than most people will ever travel, ever. And that's something I will personally always be grateful for. And I've always done my life that way. Whatever job I've ever created, I made sure it meant I could travel. And that's been kind of fundamental for me. Once we had reached that point, the last few years of the brand, we continued working, continued growing, continued doing a lot of just amazing things in a lot of areas. We made a lot of merchandise for people. We made a lot of shows their shirts. We connected a lot of people. And we were able to, I hope, create an environment where everybody who worked with Steadfast or participated in it expanded their network, expanded their resume, that they learned skill sets that they either didn't know before or they were able to sharpen by working with us. And we then came to a point where the change in the economics of our brands and our social media reach and our social media marketing changed in a significant enough way, which people that are in social media marketing and sales through e-commerce are all well aware of the changes. And we reached a point where it was time to enact one of the options, which was to merge the brand. So we merged with Inc. magazine, longtime affiliates in a lot of different projects. The original Tattooed and Employed and the I Want a Tattooed President were actually collaboration shirts. We had done several different collaborations with them along the way. And we took that opportunity. You were already living in New York, so
they were collaboration shirts. They jumped on some stuff.
They had them on we did it.
The Not So Secret was a collaboration.
It was, and so were the others. The original ones had Inked and Steadfast on different ones. We did different projects.
Yeah, but it wasn't like we did it with them or anything.
No. We invited them in. We invited them in to be a participant in branded shirts because we were doing well with e-commerce and we liked it. It was a cool platform. So we merged and rode out in Orlando as a merged project for a while and then moved up north. I moved up to Philadelphia. You were already living in Manhattan, so it was a super easy one for you to work there at that facility. And once we got everything streamlined in the merge and unified it, we combined our shows as well. So we started doing the events as the collaboration. We also acquired other brands and other media outlets, other magazines, other websites, and kind of put everybody into play, and then proceeded to take what we had learned over that period of time and branch out. I continue to work with the company and in different areas, different outlets. We have a lot of arms, a lot of different reach, and you have now moved on to taking all of the things that you learned at Steadfast and more, and branching out yourself. And you now have a lot of different projects that you're doing. Give a shout out to where people can find you and the things that you do.
Yeah, pretty easy. Aurora who?
See where she put it right behind her? Wait, where's up here? Cleverly. I can't get this angle. It's really weird to do this. There we go, like that. Aurora who? And that's a long-running joke because some of y'all listening have never figured out who she is. You have met Aurora dozens of times.
Yeah,
some have actually gone to dinner with us. Some have actually had us in your house. You always recognize me, but for some reason, Aurora has this presence that is always different. She has 100 different looks, and it is hilarious to watch people who have met her dozens of times and spent actual
come up to the booth and ask for me.
Come up to the booth and walk up to her and ask for her.
Is Aurora in the booth?
Oh my goodness, and that is true. And actually, you still they can still find you at shows from time to time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I can do a lot of different things, and I really enjoy working on different types of projects. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm helping a lot of people with their e-commerce and e-commerce development. There's a lot of people that are a little bit further behind, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying bringing what I've learned and the things that I can do to people that I really care about, and that, you know, we've been in business with for a long time, or we've been friends with for a long time in the industry. There are other projects that I'm working on, or I'm just like doing some graphic design stuff and working in that capacity. I'm taking this time to myself to travel a little bit.
To go to Thailand.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm very excited about that.
She's going to go to a Ladyboy show.
Why wouldn't I? I'm going to Thailand.
You going to live stream it?
What's that?
You going to live stream it?
Yeah.
If Facebook tries to delete it, we'll call it discrimination.
That's true. But yeah, I'm really having a great time out on my own. And if you need really anything,
this ain't a pitch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go check out her line too, because it's really awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I
got a line.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really bad at this part of it. That's why
I'm not.
That's why I had Chris. Like Chris, we always made the joke that he was the gears and I was the grease. He would. What's that?
Go buy her stuff. It's cool. I just bought a mug.
You did.
And a framed piece of art.
So that used to be the running joke that he was the gears and I was the grease. You would see him at shows and he'd be out there and, you know, shaking hands and kissing baby, making promises out there, and I would be right
shaking
behind
babies
him.
And kissing hands.
Yes, and I'd be behind him making notes of whatever it was that he said, and it was like, okay, I got to do that to make sure that was a real thing that he said. Right. So, yeah, I also am doing some stuff for myself. I really took a liking to lettering, and
she learned to write.
I did. I learned to write purdy.
I learned to write purdy stuff.
So I'm taking that and I'm making, you know, just a small merchandise site and really having fun with it. My main focus is actually around kids and Valentine's, which is a weird
Valentine's for kids.
Thing. Valentine's for, you know, whatever, that's fine. But yeah, you know that like feeling that you used to have when you were a little kid and you'd make the box and everybody would make Valentines together and they'd put them in the little box and you get to open it and you have, you know, 30 things from all your friends and you're so excited because the people like you and you just feel great and you know that they looked through the little pictures and picked the one that suited you the best. That's kind of what I like to do. So
now they make everybody give out participation Valentines so that nobody feels like that.
Well, everybody had to give each other when you're a little kid too. So
yeah.
But I really like that. So I have a little bit more of custom products that that you can do on my website, and they're kind of geared around that the idea of, you know, going backwards in time and appreciating stationery and personalized things. And so, yeah, that's.
And I recommend for anybody that's looking to either start something or revamp something to talk to Aurora. She stays ahead of the curve more than most people. She's always out there pushing the envelope when it comes to the new technologies that are out there, and they change faster than iPhones. Trust me, it's worth it. So hit her up. She's solid people. She's good, and she's a good one. I'm sure we'll be doing more work together as well. Been on for a while.
I made your podcast.
You did. She made my podcast. She made TOSOTT.com, where you can actually go see this podcast and more. And she will be back. Aurora will be back, whether or not you want to. And we're going to do like a series of shorts where we talk and pick apart actual topics, which is going to be a lot of fun because we actually have a really good dynamic. And I think that you guys will enjoy hearing us actually go into subjects more. So we're going to wrap this up shortly. We appreciate you guys having hung out this long. For those who are actually able to stay on this long, it was a long one. We just wanted to tell you where we came from, what some of the things that we did. I mean, it's 10 years worth of stories. There's a lot more to it than this that we'll probably tap into on other ones. But a couple of things that I'm going to try and start doing, and especially with Aurora, this is a little bit easier. The whole point of this, of everything that we did, was hopefully to better our own lives, to teach us disciplines and life experiences and how to attain certain goals. We are both in good places. We hope that everybody that's ever been a part of Steadfast is. I have run so long and so hard that I am thoroughly enjoying sitting back and appreciating what's around me. A couple of quick things. One, I want to always recommend a book. I haven't been doing that in the other podcasts, and I'm going to try and do a little bit better than that. This one was from a good friend of mine, Craig Lamb, who actually I just did a podcast with, and it pertains very much to Aurora and I. It is Hope for the Flowers. That's right. I'm holding up a flower book with a butterfly on it, with a caterpillar at the bottom. And the reason this was important is this amazing story. I won't give it all away, about what it means to climb for the sake of climbing and what you find when you get there. And even though that story was very important to me at the time that I read it, I didn't get it until I experienced it, until I saw myself in different environments. And I am super grateful for every endeavor. I'll always do more endeavors. Like, I know me, I know my life, but it's a good one. So Hope for the Flowers. It's a really good book with some interesting perspective that we have actually lived, some of us repeatedly, and it's a solid one. Another one for us is one of my favorite quotes, which is, argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. I didn't ever doubt that we could do it. Even when I didn't know how we could do it, I didn't doubt that we could do it, because if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. So in life, I know sitting across the room from somebody, they can get up and walk to the door. I know they can. Everybody knows they can. They can get up, they can walk to the door, unless they don't believe it. And if they don't believe it, you can kick them, throw them, push them, drag them. You can get them to that door, but they didn't do it because they didn't believe it. So trying to throw some goodness that people had given me. And lastly, figuratively and literally, between Aurora and I, sometimes it's important to find somebody that is willing to climb a mountain with you just to look into the face of a volcano. And we actually did this figuratively and literally, climbed a mountain, reached the top, looked into the volcano, and there was a fucking cloud there. And we couldn't see shit. We literally got to the top of this mountain to look into this volcano that everybody had been telling us about, which in of itself is kind of a stupid thing, because there's a huge reward for doing it. And this ties into our life. There's a huge reward for climbing that mountain, looking into that volcano to see this beautiful thing that smart people are like, I'm not going to go look in a volcano. It could blow up and it could kill me. And all of these things are true. But for some people, if you need to see that volcano and they're part of you, of your essence, is the type of person that needs to see that volcano, find somebody else that can do it. and not somebody that questions it. Somebody that's like, oh, you want to go look in a volcano? Hell yeah. And then trek that mountain and climb every step and take every heartache and every challenge and every sore muscle and every bit of you that wants to turn back and climb the whole thing. And if you get there and you look into the volcano and you see a fucking cloud, go look at other things that are at the top, enjoy other views, enjoy everything else that's around you that you could only have seen if you climbed that mountain. And don't leave until you walk back over to the face of the volcano, because amazingly, sometimes the cloud clears and you can see into that thing, and you can see the most spectacular thing that your eyes can comprehend. And if you do it with the right person, he or she will then climb over the security fence to keep you from falling into the volcano, just so you can get a little bit closer. And that's the kind of person that you need, because they'll help you get to those goals and they'll help you reach those heights. And nothing about the climb back down takes anything away from what you saw and anything that you ever did. And it is absolutely worth it. So from us, Aurora and Chris of Steadfast Brand Clothing, joining you now from TOSOTT.com, the other side of the tattoo, the other side of the volcano, the other side of the journey. Thank you for spending time with us and hearing our story. Peace.
Bye.